think we are. So welcome everyone. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Sue. Welcome.
And we are so excited to be kicking off our Happy Career Circle series with this first live conversation about 3 things that you can do to pursue your dream right now, and with the reminder and the encouragement that it's never too late to pursue your dream.
Exactly. And we have a worksheet for you. If you haven't already done so, you can download that. Where's it posted, Jenny?
In the group? It's on our Happy Career Circle page.
Okay, yeah. So go ahead and grab that if you can. Otherwise, you can get that after our conversation.
Great, awesome. Well, we are so glad to be here with you all of you today, and we're going to just kick off right out of the gate with our first tip. The first thing that you can do to pursue your dreams, and that is to get out of your own way and to not wait until you are perfectly ready. And in so many of my conversations with women and with friends, and this is something that I have definitely done in my own life as well, you know, we have these dreams, maybe we put them up on a shelf for a while, or we have something that's tugging at our heart. It's something that we know we want to do, something we want to pursue. And yet we hold back and we wait. Maybe we think, you know, the timing isn't right, or we don't know enough, we're not perfectly ready. And so soon, I just want to encourage you, if that's you today, if you have something that you know you want to pursue, or even if you're not really clear on what that might be, to not hold back and wait until you're perfectly ready. Part of my professional journey has been as a writer. And when I first started writing, I definitely did this. I definitely got in my own way. So I started out writing children's books, and I started out kind of as a closet writer, not really telling anybody what I was doing, and almost, you know, hesitantly stepping into my dream, because I thought that you had to be published to call yourself a writer. And I thought that, you know, I had to perfect my craft, and I had to get published. And so I was kind of behind the scenes, you know, researching and learning and tentatively stepping into this dream of becoming a writer. And then somebody much wiser than me said, Jenny, you don't have to be published to call yourself a writer. You know, you're writing, you are a writer. And that gave me courage to start calling myself a writer. And that is when doors started to open, because I started to see myself differently. I started to show up differently. I wasn't holding back, waiting till I was perfectly ready and published. And so I just encourage you, if you're in that place, you know, where you are holding back and you know you are getting in your own way, soon I encourage you to just step out and don't wait until you're perfectly ready, because we get ready by doing something. And the truth is, we're never perfectly ready, and the timing is never perfectly right. So that's tip number 1. And I know, Sue, you've got some great insights on how our mindset has so much to do with that waiting until we're perfectly ready and, you know, getting in our own way.
It does. And it's so interesting, because I think a lot of us fall into the trap of thinking it's our circumstances that hold us back. And we all have circumstances, like, you know, you might feel like, oh, I'm too busy, or I don't have enough money in the bank, or I don't have time, you know, or what if I fail? You know, there's all these things circumstance wise, but it's really our mindset. And you know, I've been coaching a really long time, and just watching my clients, you know, the ones that actually, you know, make it in terms of pursuing their dreams are the ones that have the mindset that they can do it. And we all struggle with this. Like, you know, it's really our thoughts that impact how we feel, the actions we take, and the results we get in our lives. And it was so interesting hearing your story, Jenny. I could sort of hear your mindset shift from the beginning when you first started writing and didn't really tell anybody, to later. So what do you think that was? Like, what was that shift for you?
Yeah, I definitely think it was a shift from me wishing I could be a writer and hoping to someday be a writer, to saying I am a writer, and I'm writing, and I'm learning, and I'm growing, and I'm going to enjoy this journey, and I'm going to share what I'm doing with others. So it definitely shifted, more being able to call myself a writer and really step into that. And with that, the hesitation went away. And when I say doors open, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that looked like when we get to our tip number 2 and tip number 3, because I think that mindset shift, and then talking about it differently, talking about myself differently too, was a huge piece of that. So yeah, there definitely was a shift.
Yeah, and I love what you just pointed out, because, you know, we think so many thoughts every day.
Yeah.
And we actually get to choose which thoughts we want to go with, right? And so when we go with a thought that actually helps us move towards our dreams, it makes us feel better. It makes us feel more inspired. And, there's all these things. And then that encourages us to take certain actions, and then we get the results we are looking for.
Yeah.
I have a good example about this too. I've had my own coaching practice for 12 years now. And for the first 10 years, I was perfectly happy to sort of, have a more of a local business. I mean, I have clients all over, but in terms of marketing and things like that, it's been word of mouth and, things like that. And a couple of years ago, I really started wanting to take my business more online. Not that I didn't want to do the local stuff too, but really tap into all the tools we have to go online. And I'm a person, like, I haven't even been on social media until recently, in this past year. So there were so many things I needed to learn and do. And back 2 years ago, I just was, I wasn't making any progress because my mindset was, I'm so overwhelmed. I can't learn all this. I'm not even good at this. I'm not good at creating content. I'm not good at social media. And so guess what? My results were, I didn't make a lot of progress. And fast forward to about a year ago, I started to shift my mindset to, I can figure this out. I am a really good learner. I really want this to happen. And I'm super excited to have an online business so I can reach more people. And even now, like, even though there's so many things I still want to learn and need to learn, my mantra daily is, I just need to figure out this next thing. I just need to master this next thing and move on to the next. And that has been working so well. Like, I'm making so much more happen now than I did 2 years ago. So that's just an example of how powerful our mindset is. And how it makes us feel. Like, I feel so much more excited and inspired to take on these new things than I did before. Before, I just felt overwhelmed.
Yeah. Oh, I love that example so much, Sue. I love that, the emphasis on the next thing, mastering the next thing. And I think the other thing before we move on to tip number 2 that this made me think of that I want to share is that when we move forward, in spite of maybe feeling like we're not quite ready or not perfectly ready, it doesn't mean that the fear is going to automatically go away. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden when we make that decision or have that mindset shift that we're not going to, feel like still like, oh gosh, I'm not ready. We might still have some of those same hesitations. We might have some fear, but it's the moving forward. And like you said, Sue, the learning and the growing and being able to approach that with enthusiasm and excitement doesn't mean that you're not going to feel any fear. I remember when I first started my coaching practice about 3.5 years ago, and just moved forward and tried to not get in my own way. But I will tell you, when I went into that very first coaching session with that very first client, I had a major case of imposter syndrome. I had, all of a sudden, I was thinking, wait a minute, what am I doing? And who am I to be helping this high level, marketing executive? And so I share that just as an encouragement, that it doesn't mean, even when you have that mindset shift and you can approach it with enthusiasm and an eagerness to learn, and you're getting out of your own way, if you still have those moments where you feel fear or you have imposter syndrome, that's okay. That can happen too, but don't let that hold you back from still moving forward. So anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I love that point. And what I've learned in my own journey in my career, and also in working with so many people, is when we move closer to like what our heart really wants and that dream that means a lot to us, it actually brings up more fear because we have more to lose. And one mindset that works, that I've shifted with that is, I used to be really good at hiding, like not putting myself out there. And what I've now realized is that sort of fear and that, the butterflies in your stomach and that apprehension is actually part of it. So it's sort of like, I must be on the right track because it's kind of a good scary. It's like if you're on a high dive and you're looking down into the water, the good kind of scary is it looks like you're still scared to be up so high, but the water looks clear and blue.
Yeah.
You're standing up there and the water looks murky and icky. then that's another conversation. But I think to your point, like the fear just comes with the process, and just to embrace it and get used to it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Love it. Okay. Well, anything else before we move on to our tip number 2?
No.
Okay.
Go to number 2.
So recap, tip number 1, get out of your own way. Don't wait until you're perfectly ready. And tip number 2 is connect with others. Don't dream alone. So don't dream in isolation. And this is so, so important. One of the most important things that I did when I first started Her Team Success, my coaching practice, was I shared my dream for my business with my circle, with my network, with my friends. I shared with them what I was doing. I kind of learned my lesson the first time around with writing. Don't do it in isolation. Don't waste years trying to get perfectly ready. Put yourself out there, share what you're doing, connect with others. And what I found when I did that, when you share your dream with others, not only do you invite others alongside you in your journey for encouragement, support, maybe even leads. I mean, people can't help you in your venture or your business if they don't know what you're doing and what your hopes and dreams for it are. But also what I found is that you have an open door and an opportunity to help them. I can't tell you how many people have asked to meet with me for coffee or to just get together. And so how did you start your own business, or how did you get started as a writer? And so being able to dream with others, invite others into your journey, tell others what you're doing is so important to be able to pursue your dream. Back to my story about being a writer. When I first started telling people I was a writer and what I was doing, that is when those connections and those genuine relationships and authentic connections started to form. So I started going to writing conferences. I joined a writing critique group, things like that. And those were the very relationships that opened those doors that I mentioned. When I said doors started to open, it was through those connections. It was through those relationships and the mentoring that happened and things like that, where I was really able to learn and grow and be able to pursue that dream alongside others. And the other thing I want to point out, and then I'm going to pass it over to you, Sue, because I know you have some really great tips on what we can do to be able to connect with others and dream with others, is when you're connecting with others and dreaming with others. And this is what I learned in my writing journey, especially because the process of becoming a published author is filled with rejection. And had I continued that journey alone, I think I would have gotten really, really discouraged and maybe even given up, because there is a lot of rejection that happens when you're sending your manuscripts out to publishers. And if it's not right for them, you get a rejection letter back. And so, but when you're dreaming with others, I had a community around me that not only showed me that, oh yeah, rejection is just part of the process and part of the journey that happens to me too. But you also have that support and that encouragement when you have those, you've got your peaks and then you've got those valleys. And so again, it's just so important to dream with others and connect with others in the process of moving forward and pursuing your dreams. So Sue, I know you've got some awesome tips on exactly how we could really connect with others and maybe some practical nuts and bolts on how we go about doing that.
Yeah, I love how you shared that, because there are some key things like that you just pointed out in terms of when we reach out and dream with others. It's that support that we get from others. It's that inspiration. It's like, we're not in this alone.
Yeah.
But the other part of it that you touched on as well is our network and our contacts and the people in our life who support us are a wealth of information. And it's such an important part of so many different, like if you don't know what you want to do, it's a great way to learn about different options that you've been dreaming about. Or if you do know what you want to do, it's a great way to get ideas on, like you were saying, how to get more involved and how to sort of figure out what that niche area is that might be perfect for you. And this is really, so, you can call it a lot of different things. You can call it networking. There's a part of it that's informational interviewing, and it's really one of the, I think, most underutilized tools we have to get on our path. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about it in terms of kind of a structured process to go about getting more information to find out what inspires you. And it's like what you said before, where, it's like when we just are in our heads and we're dreaming, which a lot of us do, right? We just sort of, we have this idea, we might talk about it with our partner or a good friend, but we don't go beyond that. But when we start getting out there and really sharing, you know, what it is that we're dreaming about, what we think we want to do, and we start getting feedback from people who are in that line of work possibly, or maybe they have information, advice, or resources, or other people we might talk to who are in that arena. A lot of times I hear people say, let's just say, for example, I had a client once who was thinking about 2 different options she was dreaming about. One was interior design, and the other one was teaching, being a professor in a college or a university. And she really didn't know, like, both of them sounded great. And so she started doing these informational interviews. And at first she's like, I don't know anybody. But then what she did was, the first step, which I encourage everyone to try, is to really just make a list of everybody you know. And that includes not just your closest friends and family, but former classmates, or former colleagues, or social media friends. There's so many contacts we have in our lives. And so that's what she did first. And she started realizing there were a couple people she could talk to explore these 2 different areas. But then the other part of it was reaching out to her connector friends and just even people close to her and saying, hey, I'm exploring interior design. Do you know anybody I might talk to? Or do you have any advice or resources for me? And if you give them those options, if you tell people what you're looking for, and it's not a yes or no question. Do you have advice, or do you know of any resources or any people I might talk to? Like, people want to help, so they will give you something that will keep you moving towards closer to getting more information. But anyway, so, going back to her experience, she started talking to people, and it became really clear to her, the more she learned about people who were teaching in the university system, the less excited she got. And as she started talking to people about interior design and getting more ideas, and finding out about professional associations and places she could kind of get with those people, she started to realize that this was something she really wanted to do. So this process really, it gives us new information that is outside of ourselves. And just dreaming and connecting with others in this way is just so powerful. It's amazing the things that we learn that we didn't even know existed. Because most of us just know, sort of general areas of career and things like that, right? And it isn't until we actually talk to people who are doing that work that we get ideas of, like, oh, this is how I might connect that to my interest, or this is how I might get my foot in the door or get some volunteer experience. So I think this connecting with others and networking and trying out some informational interviewing is a really powerful way to pursue our dreams.
Yeah, Sue, I love that so much. And I love how powerful that is in narrowing down different possible paths. And because a lot of times, and we hear that where, there might be 2 or 3 different paths that sound equally exciting. And so being able to talk to different people that are in those fields, I think that is so important. And it also made me think about, even when you maybe choose a path, or if you're really clear on what you're doing, or you've already stepped into your dream. Like for me, I think about when I first started coaching women. I had been working with women for decades, but hadn't formally, had a coaching business. So when I started my own practice, one of the very first things that I did was meet with other colleagues and other coaches and do these types of informational interviews and find out what they've learned in their journeys. And even, building those relationships and being able to ask questions about things like pricing and really practical things that really helped me to establish my business. And so if you're past the point where you are moving forward, even just remembering everything that you just said, Sue, I think is so practical as we continue on our dreams. I absolutely love that.
Yeah. It's been really helpful for me as well on my journey. So
the only thing that I would also add in this area of connecting with others and pursuing your dreams is, and I think about my own journey as a writer, in doing that and in building those friendships with other writers, I was able to have these 2 amazing women who are prolific children's book authors to this day, kind of come alongside me as mentors. And it just reminds me of the importance of, when we're pursuing our dreams, to keep in mind, especially as women, the importance of having mentors and having sponsors. And so mentors, we all know, are the people who will spend the time with us and they help us to develop and grow and they talk with us. And the sponsors, and this is something we don't often think about necessarily, but those sponsors are the people who, they know us and they know our work and they know our credibility and our character, and they're advocating for us and they're helping to open doors for us. And so mentors and sponsors, those kinds of relationships are so important, and that doesn't happen without the genuine connection and really coming alongside others and dreaming with others and connecting with others. So that's the last point I would add. Anything else, Sue, before we move on to our third point?
No, I love that idea too, that, you know, when we're on our journey and pursuing our dream, it's like connecting with others in the way that you just described. It's like you give people the opportunity to help you and get on board with you. And then all of a sudden you have these eyes and ears for you, looking for opportunities you may not have thought of, you know? And so, you know, a lot of times when people get to that point where it's like, okay, I really want to pursue this dream, all of this connecting and networking is actually, you've already started the process. So when you decide, oh, I'm going to go look for a job now, guess what? You already have your network. People are already, you know, keeping things. And this is how, you know, jobs in the hidden job market pop up. You know, it's like you just hear about an opportunity before it's even posted.
Yeah, I love that.
Love that. So, but it doesn't have to be that formal. I mean, wherever, as you mentioned, Jenny, wherever you are in that journey, it's helpful to connect and dream with others and go through this process. And before we move on, I just wanted to highlight, you know, I started talking about the nuts and bolts of this process. And Jenny, we've put together a career resource guide that all of you can access. We'll put that link up after this Facebook Live that we're doing. But just to give you a general idea, as I said, it's like really just making that list of everybody you know, and, you know, don't leave anybody off, because it's like, you can't know, we really, even our partners, like we don't know all the people they know, right? Or the information they have. So really just making that list, picking maybe 3 to 5 people from that list that either are doing the kind of work you're interested in or you think might know somebody, and then reaching out to them. And as far as the informational interviewing go, what you'll see in the guide is that there's a process. So a lot of times people say to me, I just don't know what to do. I don't know what questions to ask. I don't know how this works. And if you just read through that 2-page guide, it'll give you all the information you need and also some sample questions you might ask. But if, you know, it's really just, when you reach out to people, it really just takes 15 to 20 minutes, you know, and that could be a Zoom call, or, you know, when we can start getting out and about and having coffee dates, you know, it can be coffee, but it really doesn't take a long time. And, you know, and then once you meet with that person, you know, if you ask if they know of anyone else you might talk to, you always have, I find that you just get more and more busy with people you can connect with, because your network just keeps growing. So just wanted to throw that in as far as the nuts and bolts.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I love the reminders too, Sue, that there really is a process and it's not complicated. So that's exciting when you're able to break it down like that. So love it, love it. Okay, so let's move to our third tip, the third thing that you can do to pursue your dreams, and that is to take little steps and test things out. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing move. I think sometimes when we think about this idea of pursuing our dreams, we think it has to be like this huge, big move where it's like, okay, that means I need to quit my career and totally shift my life to this other thing. But I really, really encourage you to test things out and to take little steps. And with the reminder that little steps are a really big deal, because they add up to big steps. You know, in my coaching practice, when I'm working with women on, you know, setting goals, a lot of times we set these goals, and goals, especially big goals, can be really daunting, right? And they can be intimidating. But when you go through the process and we break it down into smaller and smaller chunks, smaller action steps, when you literally get down to what is the next thing you can do today, what is the next thing you can do tomorrow, then it becomes very doable. And so I encourage you to really embrace the idea of small steps, and don't think of them as like, oh, it's not a big deal, it's too small. When I started my writing journey, I had a baby, I had a toddler, and honestly, there were some days where I literally could write maybe 20 minutes a day, or maybe it was spending 30 minutes a day researching the writing market or researching publishers or going to the library and actually getting picture books and reading them, whatever it was that I was doing, sometimes I literally only had an hour, half an hour, 20 minutes a day. And those were little steps. So I just encourage you, little steps are a big deal. And remember that they do add up. When I started my coaching practice, I didn't have a grand marketing plan. I didn't have a web designer. I didn't have any of that. It was more like, okay, I knew this was something that I really wanted to do. And so, I fumbled through creating my own little website. I researched how to start an LLC. I signed up with, QuickBooks Self-Employed. I went and, connected with others in the field, like Sue was saying. And so it was all these little steps that were very, very doable, but those little steps added up. And so I really encourage you to embrace the little steps, take little steps moving forward. And the other thing that I want to mention before, and Sue, I know you're going to talk about testing it out, which I think is so important too, because I think a lot of times we just think we should automatically know our passions and what we want to do. And sometimes we're in a place where we're really not sure what that is. So I think testing things out is so important. But with the idea of celebrating and taking little steps, I just want to mention, and hopefully it's an encouragement, that results don't always come immediately either. And that is okay. When I started out writing, it took me years to get published, years. And so, but I was still moving forward. And had I stopped, then I never would have gotten published. And even with my coaching practice, I got my website established. I got all the things set up for my business, little step by little step at a time. And I was doing some speaking at the time as well. And I think it was a full 2 months until I got my first client and she found me online. So it wasn't like I got everything ready and said, here I am. And then, things started flooding in the next day. So I just encourage you, when you're pursuing your dream, be patient with the timing, be patient with the little steps, and know that little steps add up and they actually really are a big deal. So Sue, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, I love that. Little steps are so powerful. It reminds me of just going back to, when I was describing my experience with this, building my online business. It's like those little steps, they add up. I can't believe how far I've come. And it's just been one little thing after another. But the other thing I thought of while you were talking is, going back to the ideas, we don't always have our dream, totally mapped out in our heads, right? We just have this, it's sort of like a calling, sort of like a whisper or a tug, however you want to describe it. And so the cool thing about taking small steps is, if you think about it, like, did you ever play the warmer colder game when you were little?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like the warmer colder game where you just, how does that go again? Like somebody says there's an object.
Yeah, like you're hot, you're warm, you're hot, oh, you're colder, you're freezing, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So if you think about that, it's sort of like taking little steps that move you in the direction that feel warmer. It can be so powerful. And, one example, that I have, with you and I, Genny, back, I don't know when we started having coffee together. Was that like a year ago?
I think, I almost wonder if it was over a year ago now, Sue. I don't know. Yeah, it was a while ago.
It was the same thing, right? Like I had my coaching practice and things were going well, but I started feeling like something was missing. Like I just didn't have the excitement that I knew I could have in my dream job, right? Which is kind of how it works, right? Don't you ever find that it's always this fine tuning, even when you do have something that you love and you have a career that you really want, it's like you still have to make tweaks. And so what I kind of identified was, I love being in partnership. I don't like to just work solo all the time. It's just very draining for me and it's just not that fun, right?
Yeah.
And so you and I we started having coffee and I didn't know if we'd wanted to be partners or like I hadn't even gone there in my mind, but I just knew that meeting with you was great. It was so, it was fun to talk about our work and we realized that we had so many things in common in terms of values and, wanting to help women and, just what our goals were. And I feel like once we started talking about possibly partnering, we both were like, oh my gosh, like I want to have a partner. And you were like, I want to have a partner.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, let's have another brainstorming meeting and see how it feels. So we did. And we're like, that was really fun.
Yeah.
And then we're like, well, why don't we just try and create this one other thing and see how that goes? And so we did. And I feel like it just sort of built from there. And it's just been so natural. But it just reminds me that, like, I never could have known that that's what the missing piece was, and that you were the partner that would have been so great to work with, unless we had taken those little steps.
Yeah, I
You
love
know?
that example so much too. I felt the same way. And I love even just how you shared, like it really just started with coffee meetings and getting to know each other. And so, because you don't have to have a clear idea of how it's going to turn out or what it's going to look like. It's a matter of exploring and testing it out. And I love that. I'm
And
so
it would
glad
have
you
been
shared.
totally, like, you and I talked about this. If we had realized, because I've tried to partner with other people who I know and love, and it just wasn't quite right, you know?
Yeah.
And you and I had that conversation, like, if it doesn't feel right, it's no big deal,
Yeah.
you know? That's
Yeah.
okay. And that's the beauty of little steps, is you kind of move towards, and if it doesn't feel warmer anymore,
Yeah.
then you just back off and you try something else.
Right.
But the important thing is that you're trying things, getting out
Yes.
of your head, because that's where inspiration comes, through action.
Yep. Yes. And I also love what you said so much, Sue, about fine tuning, because I think sometimes, and I've heard this in feedback with women, I've experienced this even in my own journey at times too, where we make a decision to do something or pursue something, and there's something about it that's just not quite fitting. And so sometimes we need to fine tune and we need to make changes and we need to tweak, but I think that's part of the growth and the learning process. And then when you do that, when you pivot and you shift, that's when it becomes even a better fit. And that's when it becomes, that's when you step into more fully what that can become even in the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think being flexible and being willing to pay attention to how you're feeling and what's going on. And, you may get into something thinking this is it. And then you get into it and then you learn and then you grow and something might change and then you adjust. And that's part of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
love that.
circling back to mindset, that goes back to mindset, right? That it's okay. This is just a fun experiment. If you view that as, I'm just exploring, I'm just seeing, I'm letting the feedback of the world and the people guide me to what my right path is.
Yeah.
It takes that pressure off, because I know a lot of times we put that pressure on ourselves. Like, I need to know the right answer and I can't make a mistake, and, all these things. And really, it's okay. It's okay to explore. It's okay if it's not the right thing. It's just good information, and then you just move on.
Yep, I agree. And to the point of, and Sue, you and I have talked about this before too, this idea that, and maybe if you're watching this, you're in a place where you're not quite fulfilled in the role that you're in, or you want to be making a shift or a change. The idea that sometimes that has to be such a big move. And we just really encourage you to test those little things out. If you're I had a client once who was in a very corporate role and had a very creative spirit, and she was trying to find ways to, bring that into her life, and originally was thinking it had to be a major pivot in her career path. And what we ended up finding out, that was just little areas of her life where she incorporated that creativity on the weekends and time to do her things that she enjoyed creatively. She felt so much more in balance and fulfilled in her life without making a huge change. So I just encourage you, if you're feeling those wrestlings or you're feeling those areas of that tension, starting out with little things and just incorporating things in little steps in your life, and then seeing what doors that opens and where that leads.
That's a great point. I love that. And what it reminds me of is our point that it's never too late.
Yeah.
Because it's funny, we can get caught into, like, sort of status quo, like we don't want to make any changes because we don't want to upset the balance, or whatever it is. But the minute you start making that shift, like you were saying, if you just start adding a few things, like let's just say you want more creativity in your life, like your example, Genny, and you just find little ways to add more creativity, it's amazing how that in itself makes us more happy, because we're basically filling a missing piece within ourselves. We're listening to what our soul wants, and we're giving it that. And then what happens too, and this, I find this happens when people get out and start dreaming with others as well, but it's like your inspiration builds, right? And then I have had so many people say to me, like, why did I wait so long to do this, right? you know, I even have a friend who's in her 80s. And it's like she kept saying, you know, I have a lot of friends, I have a lot going on, I'm retired, but I just need to be making a difference. And she finally just went out and, you know, started volunteering at the literacy place where she was you know, teaching people to read. And that made such a huge difference. And she's in her 80s, but yet like that makes her happy.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think it's just a good reminder for all of us, no matter where you are in your life journey, it's never too late. Like the minute you start pivoting towards that warmer and going towards what you're dreaming about, you will see shifts immediately. And then if you just keep building on that, like it's amazing what your life will look like in a month or 3 months or a year down the road.
Yeah. Oh, Sue, that's such a perfect note to wrap on. I love that. I love that story that you shared about your friend. And so we just encourage you to put these 3 tips into practice. The first is to remember to get out of your own way and don't feel like you have to be perfectly ready. The second is to connect with others. Don't dream in isolation. And then the third is just take those little steps and test things out. Don't feel like it has to be this big all or nothing move. And we are here to encourage you, to help you, to support you. If you have any questions at all, feel free to just leave comments at the bottom part of this video. You can, I mean, what else, Sue? What am I missing as we wrap?
No, I think you've said it all.
Okay.
We'd love to hear comments, and if you have questions, please reach out.
Yeah.
And it's been super fun talking about this. There's nothing that makes me happier than seeing people pursuing their dreams and taking those steps and moving towards that.
I know, me too. That's why my son asked me the other day, he says, Mom, why do you like America's Got Talent and, you know, World of Dance and all those shows so much? Because I love those shows. I'm always like crying. And I'm like, you know, it's because I love to see people pursuing their dreams. Like it's just, so I'm with you, Sue.
Me too. I love that example. I'm with you.
So anyway, we encourage you to pursue your dreams, and remember, it's never too late. Message us, leave comments. We're happy to answer any questions, and then we'll be back with more. So this is just the first of this series. So we'll be coming back with other live conversations, and we just look forward to being able to encourage you and support you as you pursue your dreams. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.